I'll call to order the regular town council meeting for Monday, September 14th, 2020. Let's go ahead and start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. And if everyone would stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me through my mask? Okay, you guys can hear me in the back? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. Let's go ahead and start at the top. Approval of minutes and agenda. Council, you should have minutes from the August 10th regular meeting, the August 17th special meeting, and the August 28th special meeting. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns on those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So, motion by Councilman Bowen to approve the minutes. Second by Councilman Yates. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Public comments. Our first of two public comment sections. Are there any comments from the public on anything?
I would like to announce there will not be a Christmas parade this year in Crewe. I have notified the schools and they are not going to participate this year. And we need help at the railroad park. I'm the vice president now, and if you need anything, just get in touch with me since Jerry Fuller has moved to Richmond. And I noticed that quite a few places around Crewe have been cleaned up. And they really look nice. That's it.
Thank you, and I guess that's understandable given that schools are not general, so it's hard to get marching bands and things. So Christmas is canceled in Crewe. No, not all Christmas, just the parade. Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, you'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Should the spirit move you, we'll move on. Review of bills. Council, are there any questions about the bill sheet? Again, this is just a review of bills. We don't need to have any motion, but we'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions. Hearing none, moving on. Town manager's report.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, I did attach my report to your agenda, and if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Pretty much just a summary of things going on the past month.
Okay, council. It's an extensive list here of items. Were there any comments, questions, or concerns about any of them? Any questions of the town manager? Okay, hearing none. Moving on. Town attorney's report. I'm sorry, mayor's report. Got that myself. So, council, in your packet, you'll see a document titled Police Chief Community Survey Analysis. As you'll recall, we put out a survey to the public. As of the 9th, 105 people took the survey. And you can see the analysis of what it is individuals are looking for. Just overall, just some of the conclusions we can surmise from the data that we collected. Perceptions of trust in the police department and safety and Crewe are major concerns. This is likely correlated with citizens' perceptions of drugs and inadequate internal accountability as major problems need to be addressed. Professionalism and active community engagement are both important to citizens, but active community engagement is more important than portraying a professional image. Social media is overwhelmingly seen as a positive tool that should be utilized by the department. but it should supplement, not supplant, active community engagement. And you can just read the rest there. And if anyone wants to see a copy of that, I've got that right here. Any comments, questions, or concerns about that?
I think it's great information, and basically, a lot of this stuff is what we've already talked about. But it's very interesting to all the comments and all in here. So,
Right, and it, like the Vice Mayor said, it essentially validates what we've been saying as well. It's what we've been saying is also a reflection of what the community's been saying about what we want in the police chief. So I think you're talking about the grant. Yeah, we'll skip that. Council, remember that we have a work session scheduled for the 23rd at 7? 6:30. I will also likely be having a town hall with Supervisor Rourke in early October. More information coming out about that, but again, like the last time, that's not required of council. It's simply a time for the supervisor and I to speak to the public, and if you want to participate, you are more than welcome. And I've been asked to remind people by a citizen that it is state law when you trim grass along the sidewalk or on your road, and the clippings go into the road, you need to clean those up. You can't just leave your clippings in the road because that becomes a hazard for individuals, especially motorcyclists and such. So please remember to do that. And my last thing on for Mayor's report is last week I signed a proclamation designating the month of September as Emergency Preparedness Month in the town of Crewe. And if you're following along on our Facebook page, I've put up a few emergency management tips for the public. So I encourage everyone to look at those and take this month to really think about your own emergency preparedness, developing plans and kits, ensuring that you're doing your part to be to take charge of your own safety should a disaster strike. Any comments, questions, concerns? Moving on, Town Attorney's report.
Yes, thank you. I have prepared a memorandum in summary. Some of the big things that I've been working on that's been ongoing have been mostly this month, though the town manager has been the one that's been carrying that responsibility. And then also, just a reminder that the judge did order the special election to be on November the 3rd, 2020. And I also drafted an extension to the to a few agreements that's outlined in the memorandum. So if you all have any questions, just let me know.
Any comments, questions, or concerns for the town attorney? Okay, moving on. New business, number 9A, wastewater treatment plant oxidation ditch cleaning project funding strategy. And I believe we'll be having a presentation by Davenport and Company. Did you want to introduce?
Yeah, just to let you know, y'all know David Rose with Davenport and Company. We appreciate David being here tonight. He's going to give you a little brief outline of what we're proposing to do to fund this project. And after all that's done, we'll make a motion to authorize a public hearing on the proposed financing at your October meeting. Required by state code.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. If you don't mind, I'm going to take the mask off just for a few moments. If you all have copies of this, I'm happy to maybe just leave it for the audience. If anyone would like to see this, I'll just leave it for y'all and pass it around. Again, as Brian indicated, the mayor had a good opportunity with many of you, not every one of you, but again, I'm with Davenport and manage that practice. And this is now my 39th year of doing that, so hopefully I'll get it right eventually. So if I could, just a little bit on background, if you would, on page 1. We are not engineers, so what I'm going to say here is based upon discussions with your staff. It's not my personal knowledge of that in terms of the direct knowledge. But what we understand is that you have placed into operation back in 1996, the wastewater treatment plant, and it's supposed to have every decade or so certain maintenance done. And, oh, thank you. And it's supposed to have certain maintenance done, but that has not yet been done some 24 years later. So what I understand is that by not doing that, it really hurts both environmentally, and it also hurts the output, and it tends to, my non-scientific terms, clog things up, and hurts the output, what have you, and costs y'all more money. So this is hopefully something that needs to be done, as I understand it. Again, I'm not here to advocate for a project, not my job, but from what we've been able to see, you're at an important point here. And what happened to you, as you may be aware, prior to the COVID coming on board effectively in the early time of March, was there was one bid, or at least one interest that you received, that was in between $700,000 and $800,000 to do this. It was a firm I do not know up in Pennsylvania, but nevertheless, it was something that gave you some indication of the level of money. So that's why we're talking about here that level of money. Those of you may realize, I've met with many of you. We were fortunate to be brought on as your advisor, and we do work, as you know, with your neighbors around here. So in doing that, my only role here is to try to figure out how do we get the best cost of money to pay for this in the most strategic way. We are not trying to provide you that money. That would be a conflict on my behalf. We're just here trying to get that done. So on page 2, what we've done in terms of assumptions for everyone is to say that if the overall financing was $800,000, I'll get into that. The recommendation is to try to repay that over 10 years, not 24, but to get you into a cycle of that. You would then do this every decade. Obviously, it could slide a little bit, I understand, but the point is, do it on the routine expected maintenance time frame. So what we also understand is that working with your staff, bids will hopefully be due on this around October 15th. If that's the case, then the timing and the structure of it all is such that your manager in the year that we're in right now, when I say year, I'm talking about the fiscal year 2021, you have put $100,000 into your budget for this. Well, the good news is that here in 2021 fiscal year, the way the structure of financings typically work, we will most likely not have any payment until basically the beginning of fiscal year 22. That's sort of the way you typically see these financings work through banking institutions. So what will then happen is there's going to be there around $100,000 presumably. That would be a cushion. That may or may not be needed. Hopefully it's not needed, but it is a cushion for what might be some cost overrun. When I looked at that initial bid from a Pennsylvania firm, and again, I'm not an engineer, but I've been doing this long enough to know that they were kind of open-ended in saying that there's some change orders and what have you. And I sense that anything that's been not worked on for 24 years, there might be some surprises there. So that would be my thinking, is to take advantage of the fact that we built in some contingency here that would only be necessary, again, if it's necessary. Lastly, bond counsel, we are the financial advisors. We don't render a legal opinion, but to make sure all of this is done appropriately, the legal opinion will be provided by Sands Anderson out of Richmond, and I'm sure many of you probably know of those folks. They've been around a long time. So on page 3, what's our recommended approach? And this is again working with your staff. You may recall that we did a review of your overall debt portfolio, both on what we call the general fund and the utility fund, because the utility fund is paid for by user fees. That's how that's working. And so again, only those that actually get the benefits of the utility pay into the utility system. And so what we wanted to see is how is your town set up. The good news is that the town is structurally balanced, which is to say that recurring revenue are ample to meet your recurring expenses. And that's what has been the case heading into this year. So we also see that you have what we call both the legal and the practical debt capacity to borrow this $800,000. It's not a small amount, it's not done cavalierly, but again, you have the wherewithal to do that. Because again, that $100,000 that has been set up into your budget, doing that on a recurring basis provides you that opportunity. So, the other things here is that if we do this, we do this, meaning you do this, but I'm saying as part of your team, there is no collateral per se. It's the full faith and credit of the town. We call that your general obligation. And it does require a public hearing. So the schedule I'm going to show you here incorporates a public hearing. That's a requirement under Virginia law. What we're recommending is we go out and we put it out to any bank and brokerage, most likely it'll be a bank, that is interested. We send that out to about 100 banks throughout the country. And what's interesting is you never know what you get back. Some banks run hot, some are cold, just very hard to know. But what we do get from them, if we get a bid, there's no guarantee we'll get a bid, is that we ask them to hold that bid for roughly 30 days or what have you, until such time as this council meets again, so that you could know exactly what the terms and conditions are. The way it's typically set is that we, meaning the town, are not going to incur any costs until we decide, if we even decide to move forward. It seems to me we probably have to move forward given the environmental issues. But nevertheless, if we decide, for example, that we don't like the bids, they just don't seem right, then we can talk about Plan B. Plan B might be something akin to going to the state's Virginia Resource Authority, which goes to market 3 times a year. Their next time they'll go to market won't be until the springtime, but nevertheless, that could be a fallback option. With the Virginia Resource Authority, you would not know what the interest rate is until the day in which they go into the market. That's because they do a big public sale, and they combine a lot of different local governments. We represent them. I helped start that authority back in 1983, so it's something I know about, proud of. It's done very, very well, and has done about $5 billion of local governments only for Virginia. So it's been a very good program. But hopefully we won't need to do that. Hopefully what we'll get is a response or responses that are on market, on point. I personally would hope that they would give us a fixed rate for the entire 10 years. May or may not get that, especially considering rates are now at 60-year lows. You have to go back to the 1950s to find rates being akin to what they are now. So that is something that we'd like to try to hopefully lock that in. Finally, as I mentioned again, the dollars that hopefully budgeted for will be a safety net and will not be necessary, but only time will tell. So lastly, a schedule on page 4. Here we are tonight on the 14th. If you are so inclined, you would set up a notice to proceed for a public hearing. As I understand it, that would be October 12th, or maybe it's 13th, not sure what exact day is your next, in effect, meeting that allows for, is there 2 successive weeks of notices in the paper. We need to talk a little bit about that with your town attorney as to where that would be. Bond counsel would actually work with town attorney on the exact language. It can be very specific. I will tell you today, we had the second failed closing for another town in Virginia because the overall wording was not correct. And so happens, and that's the type of thing that we want to make sure we don't run into. But again, if we say it up front, we talk about it up front, that should not happen. So the thinking here is if we get your blessing, we would go to work, so to speak, put this together, and we'll be back to you in a time frame that we basically, as you can see there, in November, on the 9th, we would present some results. We would make a recommendation, working with your staff, as to whether to proceed, how to proceed, and all of that. Again, it's possible that we find that the costs are even greater. We can talk about that ahead of time, because you look here, the bids would come in roughly October 15th, so it's an ongoing process. If all goes well, we're talking about closing right around Thanksgiving, and so that would be an ideal situation for us. With that, Mayor and members of council, happy to answer any questions.
One question for me with the, going back to page 3, when you send out the, you said, you mentioned 100 different banks or so, give or take. Do those include local banks?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So here's the way the process works. We are not required under Virginia law, we mean the town, to do a procurement. We can just say, we like this bank, want to work with them, do what you will. What we think is, you're going to do better with a 2-horse race, maybe more. So the thinking is, if we get a very solid bid from some of the local banks, and we know them all, and then maybe some other bank pushes a little bit, you're not required to go to the absolute lowest bidder. You're able to say, you know what, this is a bank that's been good to us, it's been good to the community, reinvest in the community. The difference of interest is not that material from your perspective, that's not mine, and that you're able to do. So I think this is really an opportunity to sort of keep everybody, for lack of a better term, honest. Not that they're ever dishonest, I don't think that way, but gotta be transparent. And it works. It really does work. So it gives everyone an opportunity. And the reason I say it is, and again, 40 years now, almost 40 years, 39 or so, but I've never ceased to be amazed that banks that we hardly know of, from places like Utah and Denver and Columbus, Ohio, places that have, and then they're interested and they're aggressive. It just depends on their portfolio and what they're looking for. It's not as if, well, the local banks will always be better. Hopefully they are, unless hopefully we'll be close. But that's sort of what we've seen. We do, just to give you a sense of this, so our shop, my firm, we do about 125 of these a year. We literally do. We do a couple, 3 a week on average, because we have a little over 500 clients in 15 states. But Virginia, I'm from Richmond, it's our home, it's our epicenter. So that's our way we look at this. So we just do this continuously, and we never really know what's going to get. We just don't. So.
Okay.
The last thing I would say, Mayor, is this. Some people might say, well, you've got some money sitting in your funds, let's call it, your balances. With the rates at 60-year lows, with all the uncertainties, not just of COVID, but just the environment that we're in, I think you would be best to save your cash. You could always spend, pay down some debt, but once it's gone, you can't easily replenish it. So that's really been our recommendation. And so that's how we kind of look at this. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Yates.
Isn't this something we could use the Virginia Regional Council on for funding? The county just joined the Virginia Regional Council.
Commonwealth Regional Council.
Pardon?
It's the planning group, the Commonwealth Regional Council.
I can't tell you for sure, but I can check. My notes here say the Virginia Regional Council, because the county has joined them, and they help people find grants and whatnot to fund projects like this. because the county has joined, that automatically opens that avenue to us. If the county had not joined, we could not use them. But I think that would be an avenue we would want to explore for some money. I don't know if it's ever heard of it.
Are there any grants available for something like this, either of you? Do you know?
Well, and
I don't know if any grants available offhand that's gonna do maintenance on a facility that hasn't been maintained in 24 years, but we can certainly look into it. That would just push the project on down the road and throw off our timeline.
Well, with that being said, though, I know that the Virginia Regional Council, when they came up and they did the presentation for all of this, they actually used in an example some type of water treatment example. I can't tell you exactly what it was when I've been to so many meetings, but so apparently they have researched some grants. I just think it's an area we could possibly check on. And like I said, we can utilize them because the county is now part of them.
Okay.
I would add
Yes,
to
sir.
that. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Do you?
Do. So very often on utility projects, you're going to find that there's going to be either 0% money if you're applicable, or there's going to be some grant loan combinations. I think that would be part and parcel of reviewing this. So we simultaneously would look for these bids, at the same time do two things. Number one, tell the bidders, meaning the banks, that we may want to prepay some early if indeed a grant comes in, or if we get some sort of other monies that are below market. I would call these at market rates, whatever we get. So that typically happens very often.
So my question to you is, would it lessen our ability to get a grant? I can't talk with this thing. If we already had the money secured through a lending institution, or would it be better to look into the grants, and if they seem reasonably feasible, that we would qualify just to fund on getting the funding so that we don't lose that?
I think what you do is you do simultaneously, and then you don't exercise the actual loans, you don't have the money in hand. If indeed it looks like, from my perspective, if we could get some grant monies and do it that way, why not? Of course, that would be just a great
This town
approach.
needs as much free money as we can get.
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Question for town manager. It's noted that we're treading in an area where, I don't know if it's DEQ or if it's EPA or who. And obviously we've got a time frame that's starting today. What's driving that? How soon, the idea is great, but what I don't want to have is fines to start coming down because somebody walked in. Have we already been warned? Are we on a clock?
No, we're not, the town's not under any notice from any agency that I'm aware of. It just hadn't been done in 24 years, and if we get a real bad rain event.
That was my next question. How close are we to a malfunction? Because we've got a hurricane that might be coming through here.
Yeah, if a hurricane and some heavy rain comes for several days, you could be having an issue with this stuff on the ground, and you don't want DEQ to be knocking on our wastewater.
So is there anything that Sue just recommended that would prevent us doing what we need to do tonight and get you guys started on the process?
And
Like
none of this was recommended in our previous upgrade about 10 years ago of the sewer plant? Okay.
I was told from the current utilities director, was discussed with the previous town manager, and was never included in the budget.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for the town manager or the representative from Davenport?
Brian, somewhere in my arsenal of business cards that I've collected, I probably have the contact name of the Virginia Regional Council. I'm sure as I recollect, I gathered one, so that I can reach out.
Yeah, I've got.
You've got that information. Why did I already know that?
We could, I'll be going to a meeting next Wednesday. So
Pardon?
I went to the meeting last month. Big group of people.
And I'll remind council that that we do have the work session where we can add this briefly if we want to discuss it on the 23rd. But for now, if we want to move forward, we can do so and advertise for a public hearing.
You know,
Yes.
I move that we start the process and go forward with the advertising for the public meeting.
Second.
We'll go ahead and call that one Stinson. So, motion by Davis, second by Stinson. Any other discussion by council? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, item 9B, coronavirus emergency supplemental funding program grant. Town manager.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, we are aware of this, but we have been awarded a coronavirus emergency supplemental funding program grant through the Department of Criminal Justice Services, also known as DCJS, in the amount of nearly $45,000 to assist with COVID-19 mitigation and response efforts. And we do have an appropriation ordinance so that we can utilize those funds. Those funds do need to be appropriated into the current year budget. Just as some background information, this program is under the Coronavirus Aid, Recovery, and Economic Security Act, CARES Act. And it helps localities with their mitigation and response efforts. We were among 171 grants awarded to localities, nonprofit organizations, and state agencies throughout Virginia. And it looks like they put out more than $6 million in funding. And what you're concerned with, we're going to use the funding to hire a part-time temporary outreach and resource coordinator for the duration of the allowable funding period, which is through September of 2021. And this individual will primarily assist with linking individuals in need, particularly those in vulnerable populations, to local resources, as well as with our communication efforts. And I do recommend you adopt the attached appropriation ordinance.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns from council?
Can you give me some idea? Obviously, I'll be in favor of it. I'd like to, for the purpose of answering questions from the public, can you give me a little bit more on what this person's going to be doing?
So council will remember that back in either June or July, we had looked at asking the county for some of the county COVID funding for hiring an individual to help with outreach, basically public information officer, and resource coordination. So identifying what all the resources are and being able to connect individuals in need with those resources.
So how will we bridge that position with the folks in our community that need it? What's the plan there? I mean, are you just going to do a general advertisement that if you need help, this is the person to contact? Is there a program we're going to put into play with? Maybe you guys haven't thought that far ahead because we just got the money.
So that's still under development, but essentially the individual would be working with, reaching out to nonprofits, businesses, faith-based communities, identifying what the resources are and being able to identify who the individuals in need are. So it's basically a, what's the term? A hub for communication and resource coordination.
And who will be outlining or putting together whatever criteria this person's going to use to decide that? Is there somebody outside that's going to help us determine how to distribute this and who define in need and who gets it and doesn't get it?
Well, it would be open for basically anyone who identifies themselves as being in need.
Identify themselves, okay.
Right, and, yeah, absolutely. Did I explain that?
Yeah, I think they're just more so a resource coordination. We're not per se, I don't think the town's not
We're not giving them.
giving any resources away.
Right.
They're just connecting resources to the people that may need them.
Right, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I will say that I read up on the grant, and it seems like there's a lot of uses that there's a lot of things that qualify expenses towards those grants, and hiring a person, it doesn't seem like the most appropriate use for me, because I don't really see what that person's gonna do. But I saw some areas that I felt like would be a good use of those funds, so that's just my 2 cents.
So,
I
well,
don't have the list in front of me right now, I can send it out by email, or it's really easy to look up.
just for some background, this grant opportunity came up. I saw DCJS sent an email. I only saw the email where they said that they've extended the deadline, and I said, well, this may be a good opportunity, instead of asking the county for those funds, to apply for funds. So we applied for this grant under the understanding that this is what we would be using it for. So it was a very short turnaround time, and
So does that mean we can't use it for any of the other accepted, because I looked up the grant and it said all these are the areas that, you can use these funds for. Are we pigeonholed into, we have to use it for hiring a person?
I believe so, Brian.
I believe so.
Right. Now, if this grant ever comes up again, we can certainly look at those opportunities. Also, there's no match requirement for this grant.
I'll support it, but I'd be interested in having further information of exactly what this is gonna be and how we will utilize that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad, to be quite, I'm glad, it's free money from the federal
great.
government,
Yeah.
so it's no local match like the mayor said, but some of my initial concerns, even when we submitted the application to the county, was realistically how much time does this position require in such a small community? But it is a part-time position, and we can, I guess after the person comes on board, we can kind of gauge how many hours they're really needed per week.
Okay.
Because that is a question mark in my head also.
Good. I'm good.
All right. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, then, do I have a motion to, what are we moving for?
Move forward.
Okay, adopt the appropriation ordinance, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Bowen,
Second.
second by Councilman Boss. I'm sorry, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? One opposed. Okay. That one to you. Next up on the agenda, 100 West Carolina Avenue, request to declare dangerous building and authorize repairs. Town manager.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, you do have attached a letter from, memo from Dean Lewis, he's the Nottaway County Building and Code official. Back in April of 2019, he did inspect the property, the old hotel property located at 100 West Avenue, West Carolina Avenue. He considers this dangerous structure as described in town code. His memo states the canopy and second floor brick corner are held up by temporary scaffolding and posts. The sidewalk is still closed and the building is still in danger of collapse. These, as you're aware, these conditions presently still exist. I've attached a couple of pictures there of what it looks like today. Per town code, town council has the authority to require property owners to remove, repair, secure any building, wall, or structure which may endanger the public health or safety or health. As such building, any such building, wall, or structure would be considered a dangerous building per town code. In order to move forward on the process under the ordinance, I do recommend you declare the structure at 100 West Carolina Avenue a dangerous building and authorize repairs pertaining to the conditions referenced in the building official's letter to said structure.
Councilman Davis.
I work at Benchmark, and we had this built as collateral at one point. And I know we had Cambridge Construction come in, I believe, and set these, what was supposed to be a temporary thing. Or do you have any idea at this point what you're talking about in terms of cost to fix this?
No,
It's a big number.
It's like $90,000 or something. It's a big number.
It's significantly more than that.
Is it, I had understood it here.
I'm just throwing that out there as a caveat, as we move into this, declaring it, then it becomes our baby to do something with. in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
Telling the public,
Yeah, I'm not aware of the cost. I'm sure it would be, you would have to get an engineer involved, get some engineering drawings and those kind of things.
just for personal knowledge, there has been, well, Crewe Construction did that, and I'm pretty sure they gave an estimate, it was a pretty big number. I think that's why the guy who owned it died. I think this was an heir that had it, and I think he sold it, which is how it's no longer something that we have to deal with. So I'm just wondering if we know what we're getting into, what are,
So if you declare it a dangerous building, and the town attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, it's nothing requiring, even if you go through the process, it's not stating that council or the town has to do anything. We just kind of, we're making it known to the property owners, we want something done, and if they don't do it, we can do it legally, if we decide.
and then I'm assuming we would go after the property owner for restitution.
Oh, yeah, you would put a lien, if we did anything, any cost, you could put a lien on the property.
I would measure it with the lien on the property, the value of the property is versus what it's going to cost to fix it.
I actually have spoke with Ms. Parker about this issue, and she was getting someone to look at it. Did you get?
You want me to come here? Or
is-
is it okay if I?
Please, okay, if she speaks on this.
Hello, everyone. I wasn't prepared for this. I was just coming in as a citizen. My name is Kathy Parker. I spoke to you on Facebook. Hey, girl. Hey. I spoke to Ms. Benson. I spoke to several people. I have a nonprofit. I also spoken to the town manager a couple of times and notified him we're actually meeting with the people who write the grants for the county, and I would love to help. I would reach out and say it again. I would love to help Crewe build economical wealth, and as well as bring all my services for a nonprofit. That's mental health, I'm helping the elderly, I'm well versed in grants. Long story short, we meet with them on Wednesday, and I did not want to do anything to the front of the building because I was not sure if it was historical to keep the awning.
It is.
Okay, so I talked to the construction company who was out, and I talked to Beth at Benchmark, and I got the documentation. It's not a clear diagram of what they drew. So his name is Boyd Brown. He's sending me the clear documentation so we can see the structure of base. We did not want to do anything because number one, we wanted to secure the building. I'm also a contractor, and that was securing the roof. The whole roof was damaged, and that's why the water was flowing through the building. And to keep the historical value, we wanted to secure the roof first. My conversation with Brian through email was, with love, this structure has been here for 2 years. We first wanted to keep, for the building falling down, that's number one. Number two, we did not want to take the iron down until we made sure, because everybody was uncertain. So we did contact the Historical Society, and they do have it listed. However, somewhere down the line, it has disappeared. So we're working with them to fill out another application to have that as a historical place, where my nonprofit is able to get grants to make that a place where community could come in. If that's having a coffee shop and having the juvenile justice, kids come in and work, it's supposed to be a place for the community. I do want to change how Nottaway County handles the community as a whole, and that's with love. We need more love, and that's what I want to bring. So I understand the building has been like that for 2 years. I'm not saying I'm looking for 2 more years, but at least till Wednesday, I talked to the grant officials to see if we could do a match, because that's the grant that we're talking about. Side note, Coca-Cola does have a grant that does the utilities as far as infrastructure when it comes to the water lines, and they don't ask you to match. So it is money out there. Again, I will sit down with every one of you and help you write the grant, as well as with Nottaway County. So if you have any questions for me?
I would love if we could talk to one another because,
Yes.
as you know, I have the nonprofit, the wash bucket.
Yes, and we have a lot of
Maybe a way we
beautification
can
too.
partner with you on
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
I've worked with Blackstone with beautification. I would love to work with Crewe so we can be on the same standard and Berkeley as well. So we could help our counties look better and have people come here. I mean, that's what it's about, building economical wealth. I came back from Virginia Beach, back here, I'm born and raised. So I wanted to be the same when I grew up, having songs play down the street and kids coming outside and playing. I purchased a couple of lots from the auction. That's where I got the building from. So the owner didn't give it up. I actually purchased it at auction because I knew that building was historical, and I didn't want anybody else to come in and turn it to a money-making profit. I wanted to give back to the community where we can all come in and enjoy it, so.
And I didn't know.
No, that's fine, and that's what, and I like to clarify, no, and I like to
Go
clarify because I
fix it,
think
no longer my
sometimes.
problem.
Yeah, no, because I think a lot of times with the small towns, you know, people do talk, and I think sometimes you hear a story and it's not true, so I like to clarify and educate, so that's what happened,
Well, I think
and,
there's no question that it's being in drug and what it's been in that building for.
oh my goodness, you can only imagine, we just finished demoing it, like, in the inside, we finally got everything off of all the floors, and we are now redoing, you know, we're leaving all the stuff how it is, but, I mean, it was a lot. So if you think about 2 years and then before that, nothing was done, so, yeah, and then through the
You just brought me
building,
full circle. I was wondering who had gotten it. It was you, so,
Yeah.
and you and I have spoken before.
Yep.
There you go.
So do you have some idea from them yet, a dollar figure?
yes,
on-
it is,
'cause there was some structural damage to that too, wasn't
it was, and what they did was they have support beams that are holding it and are getting stressed, it's because of the chains are so heavy. And when she hit the building, it didn't have anything to, help the stress, so that's when the building kind of pulled down on the side. So it's around $100,000. And that's why we were going for the grant, because we wanted my nonprofit to be half with that, so it wouldn't pull so much financial, you know, and we pour back in the
I wish
community.
you the best.
So.
Thank you, we almost there, come on, we almost there, we almost
I
there.
love
We need this.
Many of day walking in out of B&M Drug and seeing Ray Hutchins and the soda fountain.
That's what I grew up with, the soda fountain and the milkshake fountain, and that's how I grew up. So I want to bring it back, restore that part, yeah.
So
Good for us, I'm not by myself.
could you go into more, what is the specific grant that you're applying for?
So it is, I don't know Wednesday exactly what it's called, but they actually restore buildings. I'm not sure, I meet with them on Wednesday, I can send you all the information. You can be a part of it too if you want to.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure the town would be happy to partner, I don't know. So, but in terms of, do you imagine that there's a match requirement for that grant? And if so, do
It
you
is a-
have the funding to,
It is a match requirement, and yes, I do.
okay, great, great.
Unless you guys want to help too, you can chip in.
And here's my card,
Okay.
and if you would,
Yeah,
you know, let's talk, and, okay?
And,
That's the grading I was talking about.
I
and
took a picture. Thank you.
what is the, so, assuming worst case scenario, you don't get the grant.
It's
What
not
is-
the worst case scenario, so they've guaranteed, and that's one thing, so when I came to the meeting for Nottaway, they've already got this grant several times, and all they ask is for a match requirement, that's it, and we have that.
And when you say that,
That's whoever, the national council, whoever Nottaway has hired to do the grants for Nottaway County. And I have the information too, so I can forward that to you guys, so you guys can have it.
Okay, the Commonwealth Regional Council.
Is it the Virginia Regional Council?
I'm not ready for this. I can send it to you, because I don't want to misspeak, but it's the same people, I promise. It's the same people that Nottaway administrators hired, that the nonprofits can use them for free.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's the same people.
Wow, that is interesting. Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and they have a list of grants that already worked before, so they know they can match it to it, and all you have to do is meet with them, and then that's
So
it.
you're telling me now that because Nottaway County joined it, let me
Okay,
clarify
go
this
ahead.
in my head.
Yeah,
That not only are the towns allowed to use them, to access them, the nonprofits within the towns
Yes.
are allowed to
all
use them?
nonprofits, as long as you're within Nottaway County or the
Are you
county that
serious?
you.
Wow.
That's how I'm getting it, so.
Wow, fantastic.
Why don't we
That's
let her
good
go
news.
to the meeting on Wednesday and update us?
Yes, that's,
Yeah.
come on,
I
I'll
would
send
love
it
to
to
come with you, can I?
you. Okay, yes, I have my plan, I'll let you know what time they do a conference.
So we
Well, we could add this to the agenda of the work session. I mean,
Or
it's a pretty busy work session, but,
you could just defer it and put it on unfinished business next month. Or you can go ahead and declare it tonight and, either way. Yeah, I mean, if you want to put it on, carry it over to the next meeting.
okay, so your options, council, are to either declare it a dangerous building tonight, and we can wait and see what happens, and then, take our next action, or we can table it to either the work session or the next meeting.
That's my understanding.
Your thoughts?
I don't know, I think sometimes I probably get this in the way and just, this is our relationship on record. It's been a bully situation.
I don't think the town wants to stifle you in any way.
Right, I'm trying to help the community.
So by declaring it a disaster or whatever, will that get in your way?
It definitely will, yeah.
There we go.
What were you gonna say, Ann?
Well, I would like to defer until the next
Make
regular
a
meeting.
motion that we table it till the next meeting.
Yeah,
Second.
and
Okay,
give her a chance to.
I don't think that actually requires a motion, we just simply table it. Is there no action to be taken tonight then? Okay, we will table it, and if you could, ma'am, just update us
Yes.
on, and keep us just
I sure
constantly
will.
posted,
Yes,
and we'll go from there.
thank you.
So
Thank
just
you.
clarification, I have, since I started here, I have received many complaints about the building from members of the council. That's why I did put this on the agenda. And
Yeah.
for the record, I did have one phone conversation with a lady and traded emails.
Yeah.
Can we put Parker on the agenda to come back and make a report and
Sure, would you be available, Ms. Parker, to come?
Of course, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Perfect, and I believe, we still have to decide, but I believe that meeting will be a day later. It'll be on that Tuesday, right?
And to clarify, Brian's doing exactly what Brian is supposed to do.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
just
There's been-
the circumstance of the conversation here tonight. I'd like to hear, if she can get free money to fix up the drug building,
Well,
It's a
we will
beautiful
really
building.
love
Okay,
you.
well,
and I explained to Ms. Parker that we have had multiple complaints about the way the building looks and the length of time that it's looked that
it's
way.
dangerous.
And,
Yeah.
so,
Okay, well,
Right.
just moving on.
Good, yep.
Item 9D, October 12th, 2020 regular meeting. As council will see, that meeting is, as always, falls on Columbus Day. So I believe there's a request to reschedule to the 13th.
I make a motion, we reschedule for the 13th.
Motion by Ann,
Second.
second by Sean. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that meeting is rescheduled. Item 9E, vacant derelict building registration. Council will see in their packets.
You need to do some explaining here.
So there is. I lost my presentation. Thank you. The Code of Virginia allows localities to, for certain localities that are listed, specifically the town of Clifton Forest, the town of Pulaski, in a conservation and rehabilitation district of the town of Timberville, and any city by ordinance to require the owner or owners of buildings that have been vacant for a continuous period of 12 months or more, and which meet the definition of derelict building, to register such buildings on an annual basis. So basically, what this would do is request of the General Assembly that we include the town of Crewe on that list. And rationale is blighted buildings continue to be a major concern. Many of the vacant buildings are owned by out-of-town individuals with no other stake in Crewe. Requiring owners of vacant blighted buildings to register the buildings will allow the town the opportunity to obtain additional information about the owner's intent and may cause owners to consider selling or gifting their properties to more attentive individuals. So basically, this is just another tool that we can have in our arsenal for combating blight. So,
Well, what does it do? This registration, this list, what does it do?
it allows us to understand what buildings are vacant and who owns them, and it also it keeps owners of those buildings a little bit more active than they may necessarily be currently.
So it doesn't change their rights or our rights as a town. Tessie, what does this do?
What it would do is it requires if we can get the town of Crewe on the list of authorized localities, what we would do then is, and I printed off an example from Hopewell actually, but I have here a vacant building registration application. And essentially what it would do is require an owner or property owner to go fill that out, and then your name and the address becomes on this registry. Essentially, what it forces the owner to do is it has certain registration requirements. And then there's an annual registration fee that has to be paid. If you don't pay the fee and the failure to register the building on the registry, you would get a civil penalty that would be assessed against you.
Which would be,
Up to 400?
$400.
Yes, it's up to $400. And, well, the regular one is $200, and then failure to register if you're in a conservation or rehabilitation district, it's $400.
so to make sure I have my head around this, we know who the owners of record are through Nottaway County Clerk's Office. We already have the authority, if it's a dangerous and/or whatever building, to take appropriate action. Are these buildings, I looked up the definition, how does the definition of derelict and dangerous differentiate in code? But here's my concern, you can have places that are empty for 2 years, but just because they've been empty for 2 years doesn't mean that they deserve to have a greater penalty, another penalty, or have to be on part of this list. If it's dangerous, or if it's blight, then we already have tools to address that. So are you telling me that setting aside the $400, the $250, and the $50, that we're using this as a way to form a second list of who the owners of the properties already are? Because they're all record, by the way, I would assume.
Well, first, we don't know, we don't always know which buildings have been vacant for a year, for at least a year.
Why does that matter? It's either derelict / dangerous / blight, or it is not derelict / dangerous / blight.
How is something being vacant? Well, for instance, if somebody has a property for sale and it doesn't sell, so it might be vacant a year, but that doesn't make it.
And that's kind of my point. Where are we going with this in terms of the normal citizens of the town, people who do own property outside of town? If the property is in need of repair, or it's derelict, or the yard's not up, or whatever the case might be, we're already taking action on that. I'm just a little concerned that this doesn't really give us any more teeth. It just gives us the right to charge people who probably aren't paying their taxes the ability to owe us more money. So if you can explain to me where the teeth are in this, other than just the fine, I'm good with it. We've already got the teeth to get rid of the property.
Well, I
that needs
think
to
the
be
money
rid of.
can be part of the teeth.
Well, it's also the data, so we're compiling a list, and then we can go back and look at the list of vacant buildings and determine which ones are derelict and dangerous.
We don't already know that, then?
I have some
Not
concerns
officially, not
over
legally.
adding
What's derelict
people's
and dangerous.
property to a list when it's already on the real estate property schedules for Nottaway County that anyone can go in and get anytime they want to.
He said we don't legally.
He
have
just said
a
key
list
word, but you were
of the-
talking.
Yeah, he said we don't have a legal list of properties.
A list of properties that fit the legal definition of derelict, so we would have to declare buildings dangerous or derelict, correct, Brian?
Or this allows us to legally.
That
put
that was
them
my question. What differentiates derelict from dangerous? And where is the enforcement? What are we going to do other than charge these people $400 because they don't have somebody in their house?
I'll let Tessie check, but generally, all this stuff kind of just falls under these buildings or situations being nuisances, basically.
Don't we already have a way to do
And
that?
in most places, the staff can handle that. Normally, this stuff doesn't even come to council, to be quite honest, but this way y'all's code is, our code is.
Just we don't have any policies.
Yeah.
So,
Assuming at some point we'll have a policy, Brian, you know,
So,
the other 900.
yeah, I've shared this with the mayor. I think having all these tools in our tool chest are great. My concern is, we've got these existing charter amendments, code amendments, personnel policies that we need to fix. existing stuff. And on the building maintenance side, we need to focus on basics of who is gonna handle building property maintenance from the town, because the county doesn't enforce that in the town. We don't have anybody certified on staff presently, so if it doesn't fall under dangerous buildings where it's immediate health and safety issue, if somebody just has peeling paint, we can write them a letter, but technically it's really supposed to fall under a certified building person certified through DHCD.
I hope the peeling paint is just a easy example.
Yeah.
It's yes, sir.
And therein lies my concern. I don't see anything in this that tells me how we're gonna use this tool. Where the limits of our, and I'm sorry, I'm not on the same bandwagon as everybody else is, where the limits of the intrusion are gonna stop, what's gonna fit inside that definition of derelict and what's not. Ann brought up a very good point. Just because it's empty doesn't mean it's derelict. People pass away here and relatives take a couple of years to get around to doing things. I'm just concerned about overreach here. When we already have things on the
Well,
books.
this doesn't imply that the building, because it's vacant, is derelict. This says we can make a list of buildings that are both vacant and derelict.
I guess that's what's bothering me, because it says vacant / derelict. It doesn't say vacant and derelict.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the code versus
Okay.
Brian's memo.
Okay.
Um,
I mean,
So,
somebody could have
the
a
third line
property
towards the end,
without-
and which meet the definition of derelict building under
Okay.
15.2-907.1. So, I don't want to belabor the point. Do we want to table this for now?
No,
Or is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Well, I want to just try to clarify this, I believe, for what Phil's trying to get at, which I get, is you have an empty building that has been empty for years. You want to try to motivate whoever has that building to make it a part of the community, or if they don't want to, for them to possibly sell it to somebody who will make something out of it.
My response to that is it's none of our business.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
you
get
can move
it.
forward with the motion.
Well, and my,
We'll go around the vote.
now I'd like to, my response to that would be, yes, it is our business.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, because
No, it's not.
when
Okay,
I have a
well, we're not
motion-
going
There's a motion on the floor, Mr.
to,
President.
did you make a motion, or did you want to
But I'd
table
like
it?
to say, I'd like to respond to him.
Well, we can't have back and forth.
Yeah.
On philosophy. But do you have a motion? Or,
If we can't have a
No.
debate back and forth on philosophy, then why are we here? That's
Okay.
specifically why we're here.
have your debate back and forth on
I'm
philosophy.
not trying to cut you off.
Actually,
but-
there's rules that you follow. Each person's allowed to speak twice, I think, to a subject, and you're supposed to
If
not
you're
direct
following
your...
Robert's rules.
Yes.
Do we not?
It's a good idea.
I don't know.
It's a good question, Mayor.
Okay, well, that is,
We have a big motion on the floor. We can proceed with, if we have a second, proceed with it.
You don't have a motion on the floor, I withdrew my,
okay. Well, we will take this, and in fact, my only, I think I even put in there, I want to just bring this to your attention so we can do a little bit of discussion. So receive at the 9/14 meeting, discuss possibly at the work session, and then vote at the 10/12 meeting.
Perfect.
So-
Can I get clarification, would that be possible?
Perfect, absolutely. And we can discuss philosophy at the work session. Because, well, that does fall in under some of what we'll be discussing at the work session. Moving on. Much happier topic. 9F, the Virginia Municipal League Christmas Ornament Program. Just because our Christmas parade was canceled doesn't mean that all of Christmas is canceled.
But you said it was.
We all go home and get out our craft kits.
We canceled our parade?
You missed that.
Oh,
Yeah, you
yeah,
missed that.
unfortunately, the
We
parade
did
has
not.
been canceled. But
We did not.
the group that puts it on
Yeah,
for,
schools will not be participating.
right. So, VML Christmas Ornament Program. Council will recall that in the past, we've invited individuals who are crafty or artsy to submit an ornament for the VML Christmas ornament, which would then hang, council would pick the winner, and it would hang in the executive mansion. And we've also awarded the winning crafter or artist, I think, $25 gift card to Yoder's or a eatery of their local eatery of their choice. Is this something we'd like to do again this year?
Sure.
And in that same vein, have a competition. In the past, I believe our first year we did it, we had one submission who won, and it was a great tournament. Our second year that we did it, we had one submission who won. Also a great ornament. So I know the way the county does it is they reach out to specific artists and just ask them to do it, or we can have the competition. It's up to council.
I think our favorite
Does anyone oppose the idea of Christmas?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that then. Okay. And we'll.
Do we need to make a motion, or are we good?
I don't think we need a motion for that. Nope, we don't need a motion. What we'll do is I'll look at the timeline and I'll figure out how we can pick the winner, assuming that we have multiple entries. And I'll put that on social media in the coming days. That is it for new business. Any other new business from council? Okay, unfinished business. Board of Zoning Appeals request to nominate individuals for appointment. Were there any individuals that we came up with who may be interested in serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals? No?
No.
Volunteers from the crowd?
Mrs. Phillips.
Now,
What is it exactly?
so the Board of Zoning Appeals essentially meets if there is ever a situation in which a zoning decision, say a variance or whatnot, does not work in the petitioner's favor and then needs to be appealed. For as long as I've been on council, that has never happened. So it is very rare that this group would ever meet. So if someone wants a title without any responsibility, then
We're required to have.
we are required to have
We're
one.
required to have one, but it's very likely it will ever be
It is
used,
serious.
so.
Oh,
Because
so
you gotta be appointed on.
So you can cool off.
So to clarify, as the town manager just reminded me, if it ever does come to pass that the Board of Zoning Appeals does meet, it is a serious situation, and they would have to debate. And I believe the names of the individuals would be submitted to the circuit court in order to be approved for appointment. Ms. Foss.
I would like to nominate Bill Fox.
Bill
Yeah,
Fox.
I
Okay.
second.
Third.
Okay.
All in favor, aye. All in favor.
I'll nominate
Well,
Sharon Caldwell.
Ms. Caldwell, would you be interested in?
I don't really know what it is, but if you don't have to do anything, I can handle that.
Right.
So basically, just to let y'all, if, like the mayor said, when people submit zoning applications, if they disagree with the determination of the zoning administrator, they can appeal it to the Board of Zoning Appeals. If they are requesting a variance, which means, you want to build a house into the required setbacks, and it's got to meet stipulations, and you can't just do it because it's the person's convenience to do it. They can ask for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Those are typically the biggest. Variances are usually the most common request, but the mayor's correct. You could go years without a request, or you could have a month or two where you meet, twice over 2 months. It just depends. But most likely here, they would rarely meet, but you have to have one. By state code.
An example might be, we have an ordinance on our books about the size of a residential lot. And say, for instance, an older house that was before that ordinance came into effect burned. And the person wanted to rebuild in the original footprint. You know, that really their lot at that point is not large enough, but, and it might not come, I mean, it might get approved before it ever came, but, you know, there could be instances of things like that.
So do any of you active individuals, community members, want to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I'll do it.
Do you live in town limits? Okay. I'm sorry, what your
Wanda
name?
Teal,
I'm sorry?
Wanda Teal,
Wanda Teal.
203
Teal.
Guy Avenue.
Okay. And we need one more.
3 more.
3 more.
Need to have 5. Now, you can go through a process of amending the code, which would require the planning commission for review and recommendation because it's in the zoning code. But you can go through the process and put because we're such a low population, you can set it at 3 members.
What about Robbie Knight?
You can have 1 member of the planning commission serve on the board of zoning appeals.
He's on the planning commission.
Yeah, Robbie's on.
Yeah.
Has someone asked Robbie Knight?
No, it's not him being good at it.
I say we give Ms. Teal,
Yeah.
Mr. Foss,
Ms.
Ms.
Pettis?
Pettis will do it.
Okay. And what is your address, Ms. Pettis?
306 Rock Castle Avenue.
306 Rock Castle. What are we up to, 3 plus 4? We need 1 more.
Did Bill say yes?
Bill said yes, correct?
Bill?
I didn't ask.
We just gave him an option.
Need 1 more.
You said we could have 3, now you're wanting to take.
Well, if
We have to ask
you,
permission.
You have to amend the code first.
we'd have to amend the code, which is just process in itself.
Process.
1 more person.
This has to be done, this block needs to be built.
I'll do it, or did y'all add me?
Did you?
Oh, did we, add it?
Sharon? Yes.
See how easy it is?
Okay.
Thank
So
you,
that
citizens.
is the
Thank you, guys.
4 plus 1?
That's 5.
Okay, so,
Assuming Robbie says yes, right?
Watch all kind of things come up.
okay, so,
Happen there.
do we have a motion to
We'll have a
appoint
meeting at Dining
Bill
Crew.
Foss, Wanda
Y'all
Teal,
know Donnie Crewe.
Robbie Knight, Sandra Pettis, and Sharon Caldwell to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Stinson, second by Bowen, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
This is what you get for coming.
Thank you.
And is there any other unfinished business that didn't make it to the agenda? Hearing none, we will go into our second public.
I've got one thing.
Yes,
real
sir.
quick. Can we get an update on the street light for Gatewood?
Absolutely. Brian?
We're still in contact with Dominion on that. They gave us late last week, they gave us a price. And I say, Tony and Norma in our office, but they didn't provide any explanation of what that was, how many lights, where it would go, where the light would go. So the guy hopefully is back tomorrow and they will provide us an explanation. But I think it was around $9,600 for whatever they were planning on doing.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we install the street light.
Okay.
Are we just doing one? Is that, that's what you're saying, you're not aware?
As far as,
Well, we don't know how many lights. The issue is, I don't disagree that the light needs to be there, although I've been told there's never been lights on that street.
There's never been people walking around Troy Ford's house 2 o'clock in the morning wearing pink price to be.
So if you had financial policy guidelines, what generally they would say is unbudgeted stuff like this really should be done during the annual budget process. And the other issue is there is no line item. The only line item that's attributed to streetlights is to pay the electric bill. There is no line item for constructing new streetlights.
Is there a miscellaneous?
So you can do what you want to. It's your choice. You can take money out of fund balance to pay for it. You can just absorb it in the budget through salary savings, which we have to create a new line. Your choice, but typically, these type of things really shouldn't be funded during the middle of the fiscal year. But that's your call.
Okay, so are you moving forward with your motion?
Motion's on the floor.
Okay, motion to end, does your motion include how to fund it, or just
How
the
do we
town
fund it?
town manager?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about how it makes sense to fund it. I just, I'm making the motion that we need to get it done regardless of what it costs or how we need to pay for it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Reed, second by Davis, to have a streetlight installed on Gatewood,
Yeah.
Gatewood Avenue. All in favor? I'm sorry, was there any other discussion?
Well, are we fairly sure that it's around $9,600 and not?
Yeah, that's the estimate they provide in normal, Thursday or Friday. But we don't know. That's when we're trying to get more information on what they meant, what was behind that
Yeah,
number.
because I knew
Well,
Robbie
it's been like
talked,
2 months or 3 months since he's been in here, so.
well,
How
no,
hard
it's
is it?
been, last year was when it was brought up initially.
Right, I mean, since he came in here.
But
we
it's
said we
just
were
been
gonna
an issue.
Look into it. I mean, it's been long enough to get a quote and put it in, I think.
But yeah, Robbie Knight got a quote last year for
I've heard between
16,000.
9 and 16, so regardless.
Yeah.
you know, he's-
So, yeah, it was brought up last year, and Robbie got a quote of 16,000. And so I say if we can get it for 96, I think it does need to be done. Troy had an issue at his house last year. And then,
Just for the record, I live on Gatewood. I can light my house up, so I'm not doing it because it's my street and I want to light. I hope they don't put it in front of my house, put it up there where it's dark, but I'm not gonna, wherever they think is best to put it. But just full disclosure, I live on Gatewood, but my yard is plenty lit up, but the rest of the street is dark. It's been long enough, so that's why the motion's on there.
I was just clarifying how.
I would like to be more sure of how much it's gonna cost. I don't think between $9,000
Well,
and $16,000 is a lot of money, and I'd like to know, I'd like to be able to at least get a final dollar so we know what we're voting on.
Well,
I don't think we have that right now.
amend the motion up to $10,000 and okay, we got it.
Oh.
We got a motion and a
that's
second now, right?
Is that a friendly amendment?
Well, we already have a motion and a second on the floor, right? So now we can vote on it, right?
What is the motion?
We can, if there's no other discussion.
With no limit on price? Just install?
That's my motion, yes, ma'am.
Okay, well then, I know.
I believe you would be allowed to put in a substitute motion, does it?
Yeah.
So if you wanted a substitute motion, you would request a substitute motion and make that motion, and then the substitute would be voted on, and if the substitute fails, the original motion is voted on.
Can I make a substitute motion for the price of this streetlight not to exceed $10,000?
Okay, substitute motion to,
To have a streetlight installed on Gatewood for not to exceed $10,000.
okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we are now, any discussion on the substitute? No? Okay. So now we are voting on the substitute, which is Councilman Yates's decision. And if you, or motion, if you, just to remind council, if you do not want the substitute, if you want the original motion, vote no on the substitute. If you want the substitute, vote obviously for the substitute. So, on the substitute motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 1, 2, 3 ayes, all opposed,
Nay.
Aye.
All right, whatever it is.
and 3 nays. There is a tie, the chair votes aye.
Aye on which way?
Substitute,
To substitute.
not to exceed 10,000.
Okay, any other unfinished business? Okay, public comment. Mr. Foss?
Is there any reason why the review bills have been taken out of the packet that everybody looks at here?
Oh, I didn't realize that they were out of the packet. So what, it's been moved on the agenda from something that's voted on to something that's reviewed, because technically at the, when council approves the budget, the town manager has the discretion to approve the bills as they come in. So it's technically not something that that council votes on each month. So it's been moved there, but we can certainly put it in the,
So,
Well, I'm not saying to move anything, all I'm saying, it gives us a rough idea where our dollars are going.
okay.
so the council agenda is put on the website that everybody can access. The only thing that I've been here since I started, the town prints off the agenda. So we don't, you know, or else the town will be making 60 pages of copies times 20 people.
No, it was only 4 pages. There was only 4 pages that used to be part of this. With the-
I don't
with
know.
the-
We can print as much
Would,
as council wants to do.
Would council like the monthly expenditures included in what's distributed to the public each month?
I don't have.
Is it accessible online?
It's everything in your packet is on the town website right now, that the citizens can view and print off at their own.
Yeah, is it, I think,
I was just wondering why it was taken out of here. I'm not,
No, you're fine.
I'm not looking to create a hornet's nest, which it sounds like I'm doing.
Right. Well, and part of it is we, our town clerk is on leave until the end of the month, so that's also part of it.
Well,
Right.
it's accessible online.
And it's, okay, so it is accessible online.
I'd say I'll give my copy to whoever wants to see it, and we're good.
Okay,
And the same with the mayor's report. I mean, we used to hear from the mayor so we know what was going on in town. What we're hearing now is that the mayor says to the council people, it's in your packet.
For the town manager, you mean?
Yeah. So that leaves us in the dark again. At least if he's saying, well, we're doing this, or we're doing this, or we did this, we didn't do that, this is up and coming, that's something that we can hear.
that is, I believe, also available online, correct?
All that's in your packet, and I report to council. This is a philosophical thing, that in my opinion, the council meetings are to get through business, not to sit here and hash every project to the nth degree on things. So if council would like me to, since I report to council, to go through every project line by line, I will be more than willing to do so, but that's typically not the way things are done at council meetings.
Is this something that
that's how we've been
is
doing
this
it.
something that can be gotten by the citizens?
It's online.
On the Friday?
If you go online, in theory,
It's
if-
online right now.
When was it posted?
Did you,
Yeah.
No, it's online
Did you
right
get it?
now.
It's online right now?
Yes.
What is it under?
When it was posted?
Do what?
Can I ask when it was posted?
Around 11, 12 o'clock today.
and I mean, we could also display it on the screen behind us if we wanted to. I mean, we have options. If council would figure out what you want to do, how you want to do that, and we'll put that.
I'd say we could have some copies here if anybody wants to see them.
I think we asked to give an input, they don't need or want probably this whole packet that we get. If there are certain things like the expenditures, the mayor's report,
Yeah.
the town manager's report, that are, if there are a few pages of this, that it is easier for someone to walk through that door without having to get on a computer, and it's a few more pieces of paper. They are our bosses, right?
Yes, and the way, the Wi-Fi work in Crewe, sometimes it don't work.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to talk straight on the whole packet.
this is our
Okay, so for the next meeting, the agenda, the bill sheet, and the town manager's report included in the printed.
Bill,
Several
were
copies
those
for
the things that
people
you
to
said
do.
are no longer there, the expenditures?
Well, no, the only thing that wasn't, the only thing that I understand wasn't there was the review, the bill sheets.
So if we added the bill sheets to what's.
At least we know
back there,
our
we're
expenses.
good?
Yeah.
It's 2 pages of paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just
I
don't
think
put
the
it
bill
together.
sheet was 2 pages this time.
Okay,
Just the bill
so,
sheet.
I'm sorry,
Bill says just the bill sheet.
just the bill sheet. Ms. Pettis?
It's good to know that the information is on the website. I mean, I understand the town's desire to save a few trees in the process, but to know that we can go online and read the documents, because I think it helps inform, people are coming to the meetings and you're asking for public comment, what are we commenting on? I mean, one of the things I had made a note is there some reason why we can't see the town manager's report? And I understand if there are personnel or other things that are considered private information that can't be shared with the public, I understand that. So from now on, it would be good to have a few sheets here, but I'll just make it a point of going online and looking at it. The other question that I have is not really so much a comment, is at the previous meeting, there was some discussion about exploring the possibility of pursuing a full-service grocery store here.
Yes.
Ms. Foss and Ms. Yates agreed to sort of spearhead that effort. It appeared in both the Blackstone Courier Record and in the Crewe Burkeville Journal. So I'd just like to know, is there a status on that? Because I have very strong views about it, which I won't go into now. I'll be happy to send them to
That would
both
be,
of you.
I would be very happy with that. So I started my research by reaching out to a community-built grocery store in Richmond. They were established, it's called Market on 25th.
I'm familiar.
Okay, so I reached out to them, to their owner, to kind of gauge how their journey went, how the whole process came to be, and I think the most valuable information I got out of it is they're working on a business plan that can then be replicated in other food desert areas, and that was probably the most interesting for me. But also, he put me in touch with a Feedmore representative, because Crewe does not have a Feedmore sponsored food bank. So it's a short-term solution to a bigger issue, but at least we'll have a bit more access for our citizens to some food. So that is in the works. I talked to our agency representative last week. So we're working on that. And then, but as far as chains are not going to come here. We don't have the population to support it, and we fall within buying districts of the other major chains in the county. So it's something that we're going to have to get creative about, and it's going to be a process. And while I wish we could just have it tomorrow, it's going to take time. But I'm feeling a bit optimistic about it, and especially after talking with Norm. He's from Market at 25th. He's made himself available for any more further questions that we may have going forward in this, which I was really appreciative of, because he's living it and we're trying to figure out how to get there. So I think that can be really valuable as well.
And just to add to Councilwoman Foss's, I really appreciate her leadership and initiative on reaching out to some of these. I've also reached out to the Longwood Small Business Development Center just to get some, just to start some conversations going, and reached out to an individual from the town of Burkeville who is gathering some names from that side of the western side of the county. To serve on this task force. The task force itself has not convened yet, because we've been doing some of this background research and trying to get those individuals from Burkeville on board, but we will be convening and really discussing a plan hopefully within the next week or so. Would you like to serve on that task force?
I just asked for an update.
Okay.
And
And Councilman Yates, as the other member of the task force, did you have anything to add to that? Okay.
I do have.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Bettis?
Yeah. Not at this time.
Oh, okay, sorry, it's, and any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been away for a few months, but the last time I was here, I passed around some photos I'd taken of the town, and had all you all to look at them. To name a couple of bullet items that was on the list was the sidewalks, and the other one was the old clay. I think it used to be a pharmacy, sell that by the Hardys.
behind Exxon.
Yeah, okay, that all, no windows and no doors or anything were on that building. I wanna know just how far have we gotten on that? Have we decided for the owners of the building, they're gonna put windows up, or they're gonna put doors up? It's just an open building, dogs walk into it, all kind of animals and human beings. And my question was, the town is gonna be liable if someone was to go in there, someone to be found dead in there.
Okay. Can we have Officer Morgan look at that building? Okay. We'll have that looked at by our, he's not a building official, he's our ordinance enforcement officer. Thank you. We'll get that one looked at.
Have you noticed the cleaning up of the curbings and some of the properties, though, that have been worked on since the ordinance enforcement's been going on?
No, I haven't.
The garment factory, the property over across from the garment factory, where the storage buildings had started up, the old ice plant, all those have been cut. The curbs and have all been cut with the grass and everything, so they have been working a lot. I think all of Carolina Avenue and Tennessee Avenue has been done. All the grass has gotten out, overgrown grass out of the curbs. There's been well over 100 ordinance letters sent out to houses. I think we've got the report here. We do, yes, here we go. Abated by, all right, this is weeds and wild growth since August 2020. Year to date, abated by town has been 10. So they've cut and trimmed 10 yards. Complied on their own after receiving the letter has been 51, where ordinances have been put out. Substantial improvement made has been 2. The ones that will require further attention has been 4, and no action taken has been 9. And I know from speaking with our enforcement officer, several have been taken to court to be required to clean up their properties. Then as far as the vehicles, 5 of them had been towed and removed or repaired by owner has been 32 inoperable vehicles. Covered, 0, no action taken, 14. And some of those have to be taken to court. But there has been significant progress going on, and by riding around town and being in town, you know, you can notice that people are starting to take a little bit more pride in their properties when they're seeing that those things are being done.
And all that data is also available on the website.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
My last question, 'cause I noticed on my street, there's a house on the corner that the town is cutting regular. So is the town becoming a regular grass cutting service?
People are being billed for that service because, are you talking about the one on the corner of Rock Castle and Tyler?
Yes.
That had grown up really bad, that house has been
They're
vacant
They're doing a
forever.
great job, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to see, our tax dollars going into a place where, it really needs to be done. And instead of just becoming a grass cutting service for these people that are saying, well, you know, I'll let them cut, I'll chuck them a few dollars. You know, that's all.
Well, they're being charged pretty heftily,
Okay.
a lot more than a grass cutting service. And I believe that those are the properties that most people have been complaining about that are getting taken care of, correct?
It's also my understanding after I talked to the officer, and, you know, this has been going, these types of problems have been going on for a long time. With that being said, it's probably going to maybe take more than once to go to somebody's property. So in other words, they've gone out, they might have served a notice, maybe it worked, and the next time you know, it might take the town going and doing something again to let them know that we're serious about what we're doing. In other words, this isn't a one-time shot. We want you guys to keep continuing doing this. And I think that's gonna take some time. You know, we're having to undo some habits and things that have been allowed for a long time. So I certainly, being that this is one of my big peeves here in town is this, I certainly have noticed a difference. I can tell you that right now. And I drive through pretty routinely just to check on that, so.
And there was one last thing.
Sure.
I live in the town, but I have a problem with my mail. I get my mail like I'm getting it in the county.
Your mail?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
yes,
I thought you
yes,
said mayor. I'm like, okay, that's.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
get my mail. I know in the town, everybody gets the mail right in front of the house. I can walk the street to get mine. And, but I'm paying town taxes. So I'm trying to figure out why my street isn't,
That
paved all the way
is
down. Yes.
all the decision of the USPS.
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with the town, that's the postal service that you need to talk to about
The
that.
postal service said that it was the town.
Oh,
So
really?
it's a bigger pointing
You're at the
situation.
end of Guy?
No.
Rockcastle.
Rockcastle.
It's the end of Rockcastle, out by Robbie Knight,
Near Robbie Knight and
right
Karen
almost
Town.
across the street from Robbie.
Oh, I got you.
Okay.
And that's,
You're having to walk to where to get your mail?
Up to the end of the street.
Is your road dirt?
No.
No, that's the next street. Oh, that's Gateway.
Okay,
Gateway turns into
A dirt road.
a dirt road.
yeah.
Now you can
That
say it.
doesn't make sense.
that's the first I've ever heard of that. Brian, can we look into that? Perfect. We'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. At my lovely building at the corner, the 100 West Carolina, we do not have crosswalks. It is elderly people who walk daily on the street, and today a guy with a cane was walking, almost got hit by a car. So I'm very concerned about that, and as well as, I know we are doing codes, and I appreciate that. It is a building, when you walk down my street, that has trees growing out the side of the building, as well as a lot of weeds that I'm not sure if the town is cutting. So I can give you the address, I don't know who does that. But I did send it again to the town manager as well as the code enforcer, that go ahead and tap them too, you know. And I did clear my weeds, let me just say that. So thank you for pushing me.
Okay. And I'm sure if you've already said that, we'll look into that. And
Thank you.
as far as the crosswalk goes, isn't it marked as a crosswalk there?
There's light.
There's a
It's
light? I
very
know there's no, it's not a protected, but I'm always running there. That would eventually fall under VDOT, not a,
It's VDOT street, not ours.
Yeah.
okay.
Do I need to talk to VDOT or is that something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
I think they have an application online, request crosswalks and stop signs, stuff like that.
okay, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Colwell, did you have your hand up before?
Oh, Wendy, the old Dobbins house. Remember you rode through there about a year ago or something? I mentioned it to Morgan a couple months ago, but I'm not sure, even if anybody's in that house, but you know, well, you can see the back, and then down the side, the house Ronald Dunn owns is growing over onto that house, and
People live in that house now?
well, I'm not sure. Some were there. I don't even, when I went by, the walls wasn't even up. I didn't see walls. But it was some coming and going. I don't really know about now.
I'll talk to.
You know which house I'm talking about?
The two-story one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who lives there?
Well, Vice Mayor Bond, if you
Third
would.
house from the corner.
I'll reach out on
It's
that.
kind of grown up in
Oh,
the back,
maybe
and
I'm
some of their
thinking of a
stuff
different-
is
a different
over,
house.
going over into the next house and over the fence, and
I'll reach out on that one.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bowman will take the lead on that one. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to know if there's something that can be done for people who have their music up so loud, it sounds like you're in a bar all the time.
Or the call.
Or now
Like in
is
the
this,
apartments on Guys Avenue. You know,
Okay.
it's not all the time, But at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're not screaming and yelling at 2 o'clock in the morning, but they're talking so loud, I can hear them in my big house, in the back of the house. But during the day, it sounds like I'm in a bar most of the time.
The noise ordinance takes effect at 10.
So they can-
I think 11.
So, right.
So
Yeah,
it can sound like you're at a bar all day long.
but one of the things you can do too, the owner of the apartments
Yeah.
should be able to tell them about that. Do you know, do we know who owns those?
Wouldn't this fall under, we're not supposed to be able to.
Yeah, noise
Ours-
ordinance
yeah,
after
but-
11, but.
Well, no, I'm talking about, I mean, isn't there a law in the book somewhere? We're not supposed to.
There is a noise ordinance, they're
Yeah.
a little harder to enforce, correct? Especially if it's we've had complaints before about cars that go by at a certain time, unless someone's there to notice it. Now, if it's a building and it's constantly going, I believe there are two parts. There's one part that takes effect after dark at night. I think there's one part where it does take effect during the day, and it's a constant, correct?
I think there is something.
Okay, well,
Well, it's not all the time with
Okay.
the music, but when it's up, it sounds like you're at a bar. And if I have company, I really don't want to think I'm at a
sure.
bar.
So
Yeah,
But it's the 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, they're talking really loud and cussing each other and effing this and that. And during the day, it's effing this and that. That's all they do over there, you know.
So
It's disgusting.
when this occurs, if it's during the day and the town office is open, feel free to call the town office and the police department. If it's at night, feel free to call the sheriff's department, and they'll send someone out to.
Tell them to be quiet.
Right, exactly. And issue citations if.
But if it's a continuing problem, you probably ought to reach out to the landlord of the,
I'm gonna do that, yes.
I'll find out on that.
Okay.
Avenue Apartments.
Okay. So Vice Mayor Bowen will look at the owner of that. And any other comments, questions, concerns from the public? Yes, sir.
I just got one, just kind of piggybacking off some stuff that we heard tonight, as far as the Davenport thing with the water treatment plant and, what Ms. Parker and Ms. Yates brought up about the possible Virginia Regional Advisory Grant thing. Maybe to bring it to y'all's attention, I hope y'all's wheels are spinning as much as mine were when I heard that, but, maybe possibly looking into that organization about maybe fixing up some hydrants and water lines in the town. That might be a resource to get that done.
Very good.
Yep.
And if you just state your name and address for the record.
Jordan Wilson, 600 East Pennsylvania.
Okay. Thank you.
I know where to find it.
If we can add that to our list. And anything else? Okay.
I think y'all have done a good job
Oh, thank you.
since y'all been in,
Yes.
as a whole group here, to get the grass mowed and cleaned up this place.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, we will end on that positive then. And last thing, members of council, any other announcements or anything you want to add? Councilman Foss? Councilman Davis? Stinson? Yates? Bowen and Reed. Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Foss and second by Davis. All in favor? All opposed?